A federal judge yesterday declined to appoint a special master to oversee the Justice Department's compliance with a law requiring the release of all the files related to Jeffrey Epstein. The judge ruled the request made by Congressman Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie falls outside the court's jurisdiction, citing a lack of authority to monitor the DOJ's compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Khanna and Massie argue the DOJ is in flagrant violation of that law, which required all Epstein-related files to be released by December 19th. That's more than a month ago, and say they will move forward with their efforts. The Justice Department says it still has millions of documents to review that could be relevant. Meanwhile, the House Oversight Committee has voted to hold former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress after they failed to appear for depositions in the panel's investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. The Republican-led panel voted 34-8 to advance the resolution holding Bill Clinton in contempt, with 9 Democrats voting in favor and 28-15 on holding Hillary Clinton in contempt, with 3 Democrats voting in favor. The effort will now be sent to the full House for a vote in the coming weeks, and it sets the stage for a contentious House debate and potentially prolonged legal battles. If approved by the House, the citations would be referred to the Justice Department to decide whether to pursue criminal charges. Last week, the Clintons insisted they provided the committee with information and argued the subpoenas are legally invalid. And then there's this. In response to last week's announcement by Oversight Committee Chair James Comer to hold the Clintons in contempt, Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida posted this on social media. Quote, "My friend James is always one step ahead. He made sure that while he talks about not complying with subpoenas, he surrounded himself with some members that did not comply with their congressional authorized subpoena." Absolutely genius. So, Ari, where do we stand with the Epstein files? Why are, well, I guess, first of all, why aren't people demanding the release on both sides of the aisle? I really thought this was something that was so important to the MAGA base. And what do you make of this effort to get the Clintons to come in and testify, but yet not release the Epstein files?
The administration under Donald Trump and Pam Bondi is violating the law. That is a fact. You can get sometimes a grace period of a few days. There are times in litigation where judges say, let's be reasonable if you've complied substantially, which would mean if you want a number, 80, 90%. And then litigants say, we're working on the other part. There's something complex. There's privilege. This is total, absolute illegal defiance. That's a big deal. When it's illegal defiance in the service of secrecy, hiding, and leniency for a deceased sex trafficker and his convicted co-conspirator, it's outrageous. And that's why so many people have reacted that way. So that's number one. That's the Trump administration. Number two is the Republicans said out loud in public that they had come around and they supported this. And now they obviously don't because they're not spending any time trying to get the files, which is what the survivors asked for and what would give us actionable information. If those files create investigative leads that the government hasn't taken, and I mean the government, period, whether that's under Biden or under Trump or whatnot, I would say that both parties in history have had problems in nepotism, protection for the rich and powerful and their allies. If you find that in the files, fine. For example, you mentioned this reference to the Clintons, which so far doesn't look very serious, but if the files gave us new leads in public and journalists and lawyers can look at that, fine. But rather than actually doing that, they're doing the usual thing, which is trying to weaponize. We did a count on the beat this week. In the first year of the Trump term, there's now 14 enemies list cases. Now, how bad are enemies lists? It's what got Nixon in trouble. It's what Pam Bondi swore under oath they wouldn't do. They've got 14 of them. And as we discussed earlier in the hour, some of those relate to what people have said to Congress and other situations. So the fact that the Republicans now want to get Democrats in before them around Epstein is no surprise. A final point I'll make is while lawful subpoenas have to be complied with, in the last 100 years, it's very rare to ever see a former president do sworn testimony before Congress. The precedent runs the opposite way, that to avoid a cycle of such subpoenas and political retribution, you almost never see it. The one that I'm aware of that was actual testimony was Ford, which related to a security matter. But in general, you don't see former presidents go in. So there's a high bar for that, which is to say, if this does wind its way into the courts, I think at least President Clinton has some of that history on his side. But the big headline here that I think you're right to hammer is the Trump administration's breaking the law. They're hiding these materials, and it looks like they're doing that in the service of a convicted sex trafficker in Maxwell and a deceased defendant in Epstein.
And Mika, I just add on the Clinton point. I mean, if you want to look for a leading indicator of just how political this is and how much, as Ari's just pointing out, a distraction from the actual issue here, which is getting the administration to comply with the law and produce all of the Epstein files as they are mandated to do by that law, the clearest sign here is not the subpoena to Bill Clinton to appear, because as much as it may be unusual, the man is in the Epstein files. The subpoena to Hillary Clinton to appear is quite obviously and transparently political, and I think some people will wonder why it is there are any Democrats on this panel who are voting for this contempt citation, more of them voting for the Bill Clinton citation than for the Hillary Clinton citation. You can argue about whether they're making the right decision or not, but I'll tell you one thing. Those Democrats are doing something that no Republican in a similar situation would do on Capitol Hill, which is basically taking the position that we as a committee have subpoenaed these people. They're refusing to come in, and so therefore, as kind of an institutional matter, we're going to hold them in contempt if they don't show up. Again, people may not like that they're doing that. Those Democrats are voting that way. Yeah. But again, you never see Republicans standing up for the Congress's Article 1 powers like that. They would basically just give this a pass if they would do whatever Donald Trump wanted them to do. Instead, there's some Democrats here who are going against their political interests and basically saying these may be bogus, these subpoenas, but we issued them as a committee and they are refusing to comply with them. So therefore, we're going to vote for contempt. Again, I'll just say something you never see on the Republican side, at least in the Trump era.
Just, Ari, real quick, because we got to move, but you say the Trump administration is breaking the law on the Epstein files. There are a lot of people that are waiting to see what is in the Epstein files.
Sure.
That's what they want. It's what that was, I think President Trump even promised that to his base. So how does this happen? A lot of people are asking, where are the Epstein files? So my question to you is, if the Trump administration is breaking the law, and if these files are being kept in that action, kept from the public, is there any legal recourse? Yeah.
What's really striking is that Congress has not yet sued over this. They made a separate request of, oh, maybe they could have a judge help. They didn't get very far with that because it wasn't in the law. I don't think it was a good argument. But they have a good argument on suing and saying, you guys admit in writing, Blanche and others, that's Bondi's deputy, admit they didn't turn over the majority. It's been 2 months. You're defying the law, and that's where you go to court and sue. And people say, okay, Ari, what, that's going to take another year? No, the court case can put pressure on the DOJ. It can put pressure on staff at a lower level. You can hold people in contempt. I can point you to historical examples where when judges get involved, the heat goes up. The Congress hasn't done that yet.